All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Bree Reynolds, and I'm with FlexJobs and 1 Million for Work Flexibility, and I wanted to welcome you all today. We are going to wait just another couple minutes to make sure everyone has a chance to log in, and then we will go ahead and get started. So thank you all very much for being here. Feel free to grab a glass of water and or your favorite National Flex Day beverage, and we'll get started in a couple minutes.
Hey, this is Mo.
Hey, Mo, welcome. We are just giving everybody another minute or so to log in, and then we're going to go ahead and get started.
Sweet. Sounds like a plan.
And welcome for everyone who's just logging in right now. We are waiting another minute or so to give people a chance to get in and get settled, and then we will start the presentation. All right, hello everyone. We're just going to wait another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for being here. All right, it looks like we're a couple minutes past the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, happy National Flex Day. Welcome, everyone. So glad that you found us and you could make it here for our National Flex Day presentation today. We're all talking about why you need work flexibility and how to get it. I'm sure you could all guess at some of the reasons that you might need work flexibility, but we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about those and a whole lot more during this hour. This event is hosted by FlexJobs and 1 Million for Work Flexibility, and it's the 5th annual National Flex Day, and we're very happy to have you all here. My name is Bree Reynolds, and I'm the Senior Career Specialist at FlexJobs, and I'll be moderating today's event. So first, I just wanted to go over a bit of housekeeping. This webinar is going to be about 60 minutes long with 40 minutes of presentation, give or take, and about 20 minutes of audience question and answers. So if you have questions as we're going throughout the presentation, please use the GoToWebinar control panel to send those questions to us. If you don't see your control panel, look around for a little orange arrow on your screen, and if you click the orange arrow, the control panel should magically appear. And yes, this webinar is being recorded. I know a couple people actually just asked that question, so hopefully that answers that. We will be emailing you all a link tomorrow so you can review the recording anytime. So that will be available tomorrow and you'll receive it right to your inbox. First, I just wanted to mention our panel today. You'll be hearing from all of them in just a couple minutes, but I wanted to kind of put this out there so you know who to expect. We have Mo Chahdi, who is the Director of Global Human Resources at Dell Technologies, and Dell is one of the leaders in work flexibility when it comes to companies offering this type of work option for their employees. So I'm very excited to hear what he has to say about that. We also have Jason Byer, who is a digital nomad and remote job success story, and he actually convinced his employer to let him travel the country while working remotely. So we're going to hear how he did that as well. Oops, one slide too many. There we go. And we also have Tiffany Connors, who's a staff writer with one of my favorite websites, the Penny Hoarder. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the Penny Hoarder is a personal finance website that helps people earn and save money. And they have a particular focus on working from home, which is perfect for our National Flex Day today. And Tiffany covers benefits, invisible jobs, and work from home opportunities. So very excited to have her as well. So before we start, I just wanted to touch on who we are and why we're hosting this day. As part of our National Flex Day celebration, we're offering a special discount on FlexJobs, and FlexJobs is a job search website that lists telecommuting and remote, flexible hours, part-time hours, and freelance and temporary types of jobs. We've helped over 3.5 million job seekers since we were founded in 2007. So we've been at this for over 10 years now. And we are a membership site. So like I said, we're offering a special deal on those memberships up to 50% off using the promo code FlexDay. And that's good through October 18th. So you don't have to use it right away today. You have a couple days. 1 Million for Work Flexibility is an awesome organization. It's sort of a sister organization to FlexJobs, and it's creating a collective national voice in support of work flexibility. So it's bringing together people, government organizations, companies and nonprofits and business leaders to show their support for work flexibility, learn about what flexible work options really entail and the benefits and challenges surrounding those, and to help people find more flexible ways to work. So you can learn more about that and show your support over at workflexibility.org. All right, so now let's get to the fun part, the interviews with our panelists. First up, we have Mo Chahdi at Dell. So Mo, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
So first I wanted to ask you, I know I mentioned that Dell is one of the leaders in work flexibility. Could you describe the flexible work program at Dell and what you guys offer your employees?
Certainly. Well, first of all, thank you for what you do. I do think it actually makes quite a bit of a difference when we have advocates for the topic that are very unbiased. And I think your efforts are actually really appreciated in this area.
Thank you, Mo.
So let me talk a little bit about it, and I'll just talk on a high level. What's our vision? And then ultimately kind of drill it down a little bit to be very practical as to what it actually means for us. So in a nutshell, what our work flexibility program stands for, and we call it Connected Workplace, is the idea that we want our team members and leaders to do their best work regardless of the where and when. And I think that's kind of sums up everything I'm going to say next. So the essence of it is we want to create policies, tools, guidelines, best practices, empower our leaders, empower our employees to make sure that they are all making the right choices when it comes to doing their best work for our customers. And we really don't want them to be caught up in what we call unnecessary barriers, if that makes sense, which is I can only do this job when I'm sitting in this location. And I'm staying vague on that a little bit so we can have we can drill down on it, because the way it has evolved, and we have been doing it now for over 9 years, getting to 10 years, and I say doing it in the sense of actively as an organization, understanding how to achieve ideal work flexibility within the company, understanding what works, what doesn't, and actively kind of pursuing that as a company. We've been doing that for 9 years. We obviously had it organically happen before that, but I think as a company, when you spend time focusing on something, you start seeing patterns and you start realizing things, and that's kind of what we've been doing for the last 9 years. And my point of the regardless of the where is that when we kind of went into the topic a little more, you realize that it's not about the conventional way sometimes people look at work flexibility, which is either you have people in the office or people working from home. We look at it more as a continuum, meaning you have from one end people sitting in the office and one end people sitting at home, but there's all the in-betweens and there's all the transitions that happens within one day, within 1 week, or within 1 month, where people gradually move across the continuum. The classic example is somebody who started their day at home, taking their first meeting. They are traveling, so they take the second meeting or third meeting in transit at the airport. and then they finish up their day at work somewhere in a building. And so if you visualize that, we want that experience of them being connected, for lack of a better word, and collaborative, getting access to their technology, being able to connect with their colleagues, be as seamless as possible, but most importantly, as productive as possible. And that's really the proposition. Embedded within that, we can spend hours and hours describing from culture to technology to policies, how everything we do empowers a culture where that is set up to succeed, but also kind of empowers the discretion and the trust that we have in our people, leaders, and team members to make it work.
Well, yeah, I love the way you described it as a continuum, because isn't that so true about with flexible work? It's really, there is no one way to work flexibly. Even in one day or 1 week, people are using different types of flexibility to both get their work done and, manage the rest of their lives and do all of that, like you said, as productively as possible. So how does this flexibility continuum that you've developed at Dell, and actually I should mention that Dell has been one of our top 100 companies for remote jobs for 5 years in a row. So with remote work, I mean, you guys really are one of the leaders. You were number 9 this year. And so that's really good to point out, is that you, as you said, have been doing this for 9 years or so, but even before then, it's been a part of the company. How does this work flexibility continuum that you offer benefit your employees? And you could talk a little bit about yourself too, how you personally leverage it. What does it look like in your day-to-day life? And then how does it also benefit the company? Because I know we oftentimes focus on how it helps the employees, but there are huge benefits to the company as well.
Oh, 100%. And I would actually start with right there, to be honest, is, a lot of times we talk about work flexibility, and more specifically kind of the remote aspects of it, as only something that benefits the employee, makes them happy, gives them the convenience, and all the above is true. But the reality is it's actually a company business approach and a business strategy. And I'm going to put a couple of statements to kind of give a sense of what that is. And again, it is difficult for me, I have to admit it. I'm very passionate about this topic, so I have to make sure I'm not drilling down a lot, because we can spend the next couple of hours talking about this and I wouldn't even notice. So if you're a company, from the moment you want to get your hands on the best talent, work flexibility kicks in. And what I mean with that is, if you have one site, let's say across the states in one city, then imagine if you were to limit yourself to the people who are physically located within that particular city. Clearly, you're missing out. So you may get the best people within that vicinity, but there could be a lot more talented people across the state, across the other states, and you want to get your hands on that. You want to make sure that those people, know that you have an opportunity and join you, and ultimately when they join, so that's the whole talent attraction aspect of it. But when they join, they also find a culture that allows them to be successful, even though they are not physically based at your site. I think the conventional way it always has manifested itself in the past is the analogy of headquarters versus non-headquarters people. And in a typical HR conversation, what this stands for is people sometimes feel that they are exposed to a lot less opportunities when they are not based in the headquarters of the company they work for. And again, regardless of whether they are working from a home or from an office, right? And this is where the culture matters, right? And so in this context, when you have people who join your company and work for you, you want to make sure that the environment that is set up, the expectations that are set up, levels the play field when it comes into people who do their job from a site that you may have. Again, going back to my example, that's one site that you happen to have within the States. You want people who are equally engaged and equally productive, regardless of whether they are based physically at that site or they're based across the country somewhere else. And that's the whole culture of inclusion of all flexible work sites. And notice in what I say, there are a lot of things that get included. So you may have people who are, again, my example of headquarters versus non-headquarters, and home versus office, and so on and so forth. So that's really where the work flexibility matters. But there is something really deeper that goes in there, which is, and that goes into how does that work for us. It's the expectation you set from your people leaders on what it is that you would like them to focus on when it comes into the management of their employees. And what I mean with that is the moment you set the expectation loud and clear that what matters is people's efforts and contribution, and obviously quality of work, and not necessarily whether they work from an office and whether they work from home. And the moment they're visible, it becomes a good thing. And the moment their managers don't see them, they don't know exactly if they're productive or not. And I think, again, I'm just calling that out as one of the challenges. Sometimes I get called out to go for it. So let me get a little bit practical here. How does it work? We have basically a global policy that outlines the overall guidelines of what is understood as a work flexibility program within the company. It defines a couple of things, such as the different work styles, and really, as I said, it varies from 100% at home to mobile, which is a couple of days from the office and a couple of days from home in a typical week. And then it provides the eligibility aspects, which is the way we put it, and this is something that I think a lot of companies can resonate with. We want people to make that choice the moment it doesn't conflict with their job. And what I mean with that is the moment, let's say, or for certain roles, which due to technology continuing to evolve, we understand is still a constraint. The moment the physical requirement exists in somebody's day job, then naturally that kind of put a constraint into whether or not they can do their job remotely or not. But we are very open about it. So again, like if I take another example, if let's say somebody's role is to physically open an office every morning, then naturally they have to be physically there to open that office every morning. At least for now, the technology doesn't help with that yet. And so those are the kind of guidelines we give. But most importantly, what we do is put clear discretion to employees and people leaders to work together to come up with the best arrangement that works for them, but also works for their particular role and the customers they are serving. So what that translates to is every manager is clearly directed and instructed to make a judgment call, decide on whether work flexible arrangements work for their team members, with the very high encouraging tone of being flexible. Again, excuse the pun here, but the idea is we want that conversation to be as open and genuine between every employee and their leaders, and have our leaders be open to what technology has allowed us to do today in order to allow more flexibility to their work, to their team members in how they choose to do their job. And this is really what we do. And then obviously we work very closely with our IT colleagues within the company. There are some very foundational things you have to have in place. The example being, the right policies to comply with the different regulations that exist across the different countries and governments, because they do look at that aspects of work with different lenses. You want to have the right technology, and I want to say this, and it sounds very biased, obviously, working for Dell. If you don't have the right technology, then you're setting up your team members and workforce for failure. And that is certainly something you want to take care of as you're building your policies and as you're encouraging for your workforce to start leveraging work flexibility.
Oh, these are such good insights, Mo. Thank you. I think just to kind of keep the conversation moving and make sure that we hear from the other panelists, I want to stop you there, but with the caveat that there will be plenty of times for question and answers from our audience too. And I think job seekers, definitely this insight into how a company does flexible work options is huge, because not every company does it the same way, but you do get a sense of what really thoughtful companies look like when it comes to work flexibility. And so if you are searching for a job, looking for a company that has put this much thought into their program is a really good idea, because chances are it's going to be a really good place to work in terms of flexible work. But Mo, yeah, thank you so much. This is such good insight. And I know we're on limited time, so I hate to push you to the next person, but thank you very much for the great insights there.
Not at all. My pleasure.
All right. And up next, we have Jason Byer. So as I mentioned before, Jason is a digital nomad and a remote job success story. He has successfully convinced his employer to let him work from the road while he travels with his family. So Jason, I wanted to just start by having you tell us a little bit about your story and how you were able to negotiate your flexible work option.
Absolutely. All right. Well, happy Flex Day, folks. No, it's exciting. I'm actually working in Wisconsin currently, but in terms of what I do, I lead marketing and partnerships for crowdspring.com. We are a graphic design marketplace that provides affordable graphic design services, over 55,000 clients in the last 10 years. So certainly not a new startup. And I live near our Chicago headquarters, where our CEO lives. But as you know, currently I'm traveling around, and our full team is distributed around the world. So about 2.5 years ago, my wife and I were pregnant with our second child. And the company I was working for at the time had about 10 days paid vacation time. And the problem was my family lives in Florida, my wife's family lives in Cody, Wyoming. And we wanted our families, we enjoy our families, we wanted to spend time with them, we wanted our daughters to grow up around family. And 10 days was never going to be good enough. And so I realized that early on. I was working with this company for a couple of years, and I had negotiated an ability to work out of the office for about 6 weeks each year. There wasn't a specific amount of time to it, but I was allowed to do my work outside of the office. The problem was I was maybe 2 or 3 employees out of 850, 900 employees in the company that had this benefit. And so it worked very well for a couple of years, but as time went on, this policy continued to come up to the chopping block because it wasn't viewed as fair for the entire company. And I kept hearing on a weekly basis that this privilege was going to get taken away. And I finally got frustrated enough where I didn't want to live with this fear any longer about this work culture. So during lunch, I always ate my lunch at the office, but during lunch, I grabbed my computer. I still remember this day. I walked across the street to the local coffee shop, ordered a black cup of coffee, sat down in one of those big coffee shop leather chairs. And literally before the coffee was cold, I found the job that I'm working at today. And as Mo thanked FlexJobs when he started, you know, I have to as well, because it's through FlexJobs that I found that opportunity. You know, and this, what I really, yeah, exactly. What I really liked about the FlexJobs experience was not just the curation, which was phenomenal to be able to find that job quickly, but finding a job quickly that doesn't have a culture of workplace flexibility was what I had previously, where I was one of only a couple people, not even 1% of the company that had this type of flexibility. So where I'm at now, you know, the entire company has this type of flexibility. And you know, in terms of deciding to be a digital nomad, you know, I travel still about 6 weeks out of the year like I did at my previous job. But what I realized was that became the new normal. And I kind of wasn't pushing the boundaries quite enough with the benefit that I had with flexibility. I typically do something big personally or professionally each year. I wrote a book about finding your dream job 2 years ago. Did a 14-hour Ironman triathlon last year. So this year, my wife and I decided, look, we've always wanted to travel. Our girls are 2 and 4. They're perfect ages just to pack them up and go. Let's travel the country. So I bought a large, giant truck and a 30-foot travel trailer, and we are traveling around. We didn't sell the house in Chicago. We still enjoy bouncing back and forth to see our CEO and friends and family in that area. But yeah, that's what got me started in this. So very thankful to FlexJobs for that. Did you want me to jump into the actual negotiating and how to, convince your boss how to do this?
Yeah, that would be great because I think we have a number of people on the call who are probably currently employed and they want more flexibility, but they're stuck between kind of wanting to stay with that company if they like their position or they like their boss, but also needing more flexibility out of it and not sure if they need to launch into a full job search to get that with a different company. So if you could talk a little bit about that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna dive into some real specifics here, and they're not specifics where you would need to, like you mentioned, switch jobs or use FlexJobs. These are agnostic in that sense. But I think the first one, ideally you want, if you are looking to switch your job, that can be one of the best ways, right? Because ideally you want to find a company where workplace flexibility is commonplace, right? So my earlier example, I did not have that in my prior job. So if you're thinking about switching, this is certainly one of the first steps, right? Like, how hard is it going to be to convince my boss really has to do with what does the workplace culture look like currently. So if you're thinking about switching, this could be a good time because that's kind of the foundational aspect to getting started. The next thought may come naturally or may not, but you've got to be good at what you do, right? If you're just a mediocre employee that's not, you're clocking in late, you're not really getting excited about the work that you're doing, it's going to be tough to negotiate being out of the office where you're not going to be watched regularly. So you don't have to be the best, you don't have to be great, but be good, like show an interest in what you're doing and show an interest in the company. And hopefully that's natural. If it's not natural, then again, you should probably look for something different, something that you enjoy a little bit more, but be good at what you do. And next, I would say you want to start laying that foundation before you even ask, right? It becomes a lot easier. So my first thought is to start having regular meetings with your manager or CEO. Typically, we look at these types of performance reviews that happen once a year or twice a year, maybe quarterly, as these things to avoid. I would embrace it, right? And I would try to set up something on a weekly basis or 2 times a month where you're meeting with your manager or CEO, because it's crucial that this individual sees the value that you're bringing and has the opportunity to talk to you about things that they dislike much earlier in the conversation. My CEO regularly says, look, if I say something that comes as a surprise in a performance review, kind of yearly or semi-annually, we didn't do our jobs right, because we should be having that conversation regularly. So push for more frequent meetings. If you don't have a lot of time or your manager is very busy, I mean, these can be 15-minute meetings while you're walking to lunch or walking out to the car. They don't have to be super formal. I've had a weekly meeting with my CEO, preference for in-person, but when we're traveling over webcam, and over 100 in the last 2.5 years. That's a lot of face time, a lot of chance to see how we're both adding value. So start setting up those regular conversations. Also, in terms of laying the foundation, start being seen as a leader in the company, because then you're going to be trusted with more responsibility to work outside of the office. Now leadership kind of has this connotation that you need a job title or you need an MBA. I think it's much simpler than that. And I'm going to borrow from a book called Turn the Ship Around. And the premise to that book, you don't have to read the whole thing because I'll just give it away here. It's change how you approach what you plan to do. Rather than asking for permission to do something, state what you intend to do, right? So instead of saying, can I do X, state, I intend to do X. So can I work with X supplier, as opposed to, I intend to work with X supplier because of X, X, and X reason. What are your thoughts, CEO or manager? This shows a lot more leadership, which is crucial to being trusted to work outside of the office when you're not seen regularly. So leadership doesn't have to be this huge job title or something that's bestowed on you. Simply today, start stating what you intend to do and why, and you'll start to get more respect and you'll start to get more responsibility and trust to work outside of the office. Another big way to prepare is for asking for this flexibility is to anticipate the concerns of the employer. The employer doesn't really care that you want to work next to the beach, right? They want you to get your job done effectively. They want you to be creative. As Mo mentioned, that can take a variety of areas, physically, geographically, that you could do that from. But ultimately, the company exists to do well for themselves and their clients. So anticipate the concerns of the employer. things like, will you be making regularly scheduled meetings? Will you follow the same schedule that you've already been following or your colleagues follow? How will this impact clients? Will you have an internet connection while you're traveling? Now, these things don't have to all be negatives. They can be positive implications, perhaps increased PR for the company or the chance to meet with VIP clients while you travel. So there can be some positive things that the employer is anticipating or is not that you want to let them know. But start anticipating questions that the employer will ask. Now, I say all that because that's all of that leading up to the ask. And if you've done all of that, or you've done the majority of that, the actual asking is not very dramatic because you've already laid the foundation. I simply told my CEO while we were walking on one of our walks, I said, look, I just bought a truck, a trailer. Katie, my wife, and I are going to travel the country for a year while I work from the road. I'll probably start earlier in the day and I'll have multiple forms of internet backup. And his reply was, that's awesome. I'm jealous. And that's ultimately what you're going for, right? You're going for a very easy yes, because you've laid the foundation, in my case, since I started at the company, laying that foundation with having that communication. So those are my tips.
Well, that's huge. That's awesome. I mean, I think people are probably furiously scribbling if they're in that situation to make sure that they've got all of that really good advice. Because I think you're right. The groundwork for it is so important, and having that reputation and showing yourself as somebody who can be trusted to work from home or work flexibly, that's really the key part. And then the ask doesn't have to be that big dramatic moment. So thank you so much for laying that all out. And then I do want to go over to our last panelist so that we can get to the question and answer sessions, because we have lots of good questions coming in here for our panelists so far. So thank you very much, Jason. And and I should mention on the screen here, we do have this URL, this website to, Jason has been doing some videos for us about his experience working as a digital nomad and working remotely on the road. And they're really insightful, really helpful tips to work that way and just working remotely in general. So I would definitely check those out. You can find them all at tinyurl.com/flexjobsnomad. But thanks again, Jason. Your insights are very helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. And our third panelist today, as I mentioned before, is Tiffany Connors. She is a staff writer at the Penny Hoarder. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. We at the Penny Hoarder are big on flexibility, so we're big fans of National Flex Day. Yes.
Yep. And the Penny Hoarder is a great website overall. And then I love that you have this focus on work from home, which we kind of have displayed here up on the screen. So I understand, just as a company, let alone a resource for other people, but as a company, the Penny Hoarder offers flexibility to staffers and employees. So what does flexibility look like on your team and at the Penny Hoarder?
Yeah, from the start, from the very beginning, we have been very big on flexibility at work. So specifically, the Penny Hoarder as a company offers work from home 1 day a week for the entire company, and that's across the board. And then also the flex time. And I think that's as important as the work from home ability, especially, I mean, I'm a working mom, so this means a lot to me that I can go and pick up my kid from school, I can drop her off and still be able to get in my work hours. And I think that comes from our company's flexibility. Really, it can be traced back to like two things, and that's trust and that's open communication. And I think that Mo and Jason both touched on that. But it really sets the stage, from the very beginning when we get, one of our introductory emails from our CEO, Kyle Taylor, it says right in there, if I'm emailing you at night or over the weekend, please know that I don't expect a response right away. We all work on our own schedules. Some of us, thrive in the middle of the night. Some of us, are early risers. And it's sort of that, as long as there's an open communication, as long as you're embracing that communication, like Jason said, you get that level of trust among managers. And for me personally, I'm a reporter, so I have sources and they don't always work from 9 to 5. So if I'm interviewing a source on the weekend, I can easily say to my boss, hey, I spent an hour or two interviewing somebody. I'm just going to take off early on Friday. She has no problem with that because she understands that, she trusts me and I trust her. So by getting rid of like the micromanaging, the clock watching that really erodes the trust, You say you're going to do the work, you keep the open line of communication, and everybody knows that the work gets done. And beyond that, like at our office, you know, even within our office, there's flexibility. So we have quiet rooms, we have couches, we have little spaces and nooks where you can go, and if you need to get some quiet work done. So we're never at our desks, or if we're at our desks, you know, we're in and out, even out of the office. So just within our office, we create that culture of flexibility that I think really helps us, you know, helps it be pervasive throughout the company.
Oh, that's awesome. And like you said, yeah, the trust component is really so big. So for people who are looking to work flexibly, establishing that trust can be really key to having a good working relationship with your manager and with other people at the company who are also working flexibly.
Absolutely.
So the Penny Hoarder recently launched this work from home section, which looks fantastic. So what can people find there, and what are some of your favorite tips for landing a remote or flexible job?
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, we are really proud. It's a searchable job portal, and it launched this summer, and it's exclusively work from home jobs. So it's kind of nice because when you're going to some job search sites and you know you're specifically looking for work from home jobs and you type in work from home, you might get part-time, or you might get something even worse, which is, you know, within the job listing it says this is not a work from home job, but it got picked up by a keyword search. So our portal is sort of taking the guesswork out of it. If you're looking for work from home, you can come to us. And one of the ways that we try to make it as reputable as possible is that we have a team of reporters that vet the jobs. So that means that we're rooting out scams. That means that we're confirming that the job is even still available. We check out reviews of the company and what the employees have to say about it. And if that starts to go down, then they get pulled. So we do the legwork, and we vet easily like an average of 8 to 10 jobs per day. And for 8 to 10 of them, we probably only post 2 or 3. So we're going through a lot of different jobs and looking at everything that they have to say. And in fact, like we'll get feedback from readers. And if a company isn't what it says it's going to do, you know, we'll pull the job listing and we won't post from them anymore. And in terms of tips for landing a remote job, the best advice I'd offer is demonstrating your trustworthiness before you get the job. So that means starting with your resume. So a one-size-fits-all isn't going to work any longer. So if you're looking at the job listing, you know, if you see Excel skills are important and you have taken a specific course in Excel, put that on there. You know, make it easy for, you know, the recruiter to look at your resume and see just what a great fit you would be for the company. And that goes beyond the skills. That goes doing some research on the company culture, you know, knowing that, you know, if you're a good fit for them to begin with is a great way for you to show them within interviews, within your resume, within your application.
Oh, those are such good points. Yes, there are really definitely some things you can do to make yourself stand out for a flexible job. And I'll be talking a little bit about more about that after the panel interviews. So stay tuned, everybody. So Tiffany, at the Penny Hoarder, you guys do a lot of reporting on working from home and the jobs and companies hiring and sort of giving people a really good idea of what's out there for jobs. So what companies and jobs are you most excited about in terms of workplace flexibility? What has really kind of sparked your interest as you guys are doing that reporting?
Yeah, we are seeing, I mean, obviously with the booming job market, we're seeing companies from a variety of industries that are hiring work from home. I mean, whether it's healthcare, whether it's hospitality and tech, those are 3 areas in particular that we're seeing a big boost from. But across the board, the skills that we continue to see that these companies are looking for are soft skills. They say that they can train for, you know, whatever the technical skills is, but the fact is that, you know, we have all of this great technology and all of these new, you know, programs that people can use, but they still need somebody to run the program. Even if it's automated, you still need somebody who knows how to operate it. And that means that your customers need somebody who can explain that to them. So if you need somebody with compassion to understand that people don't always get your brand new awesome technology. So we're definitely seeing companies across the board that are asking for skills like empathy, patience, leadership, problem solving, time management. That's across the board, no matter which company you're talking about. And it's just a universal skill that's not going to go away. And I think one of the things that I'm personally most excited about that I'm seeing in terms of workplace flexibility is family leave. So we're seeing more companies that are offering paid time off to care for family members. And that's a huge issue, not only for parents, but also for adult caregivers of people with elderly parents or family members. So we just posted a story about how more than 40 million Americans provide unpaid elder care. And that's only going to increase as our population ages. And all of those caregivers can't quit their jobs. So we're really encouraged to see companies stepping up to offer like flexible work arrangements and paid time off that goes well beyond the Family Medical Leave Act. Like for instance, just as an example, we have General Mills recently added 2 weeks of paid leave for family caregivers to its benefits plan. And Starbucks, we just reported, started a program which subsidizes up to 10 days of backup care for both child care and elderly caregiving. So I think that that's a big thing for us.
Yeah, that's so true. That's a huge trend that is really nice to see. And I think probably a lot of people listening to this call are nodding their heads as you're talking about caregiving, because it's not just an issue for parents. It's an issue for adult children, like you said, with elderly parents. It's also just an issue for caregivers of anyone in your family who might have some kind of health issue or disability that they're dealing with, and you can't quit your job to be a full-time caregiver necessarily. So being able to find something that is flexible enough to accommodate that situation is huge. So yes, I think that's a really good space to watch. We've seen a lot in the last year in terms of leave policies really getting better, to put it bluntly, getting better. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much for your insights as well. And just a couple things to go over before we get to the question and answer session. I wanted to talk a little bit more about how to find flexible jobs because as at FlexJobs, we work on this quite a lot with job seekers, both just on our job boards and putting things out there for people to see, but also one-on-one with some career coaching that we offer now to help job seekers actually land these types of jobs. So just for the audience's understanding of the flexible job market, I wanted to put up this list of the top career fields for flexible jobs. So this is based on job posting data at FlexJobs. And these fields, these 20 fields, are out of 55 fields overall. So it's quite a number of fields that we're tracking. And these 20 tend to have the most flexible job listings over time. So as you're looking at this list, and then I have a couple more lists to show you, I just wanted you to start thinking about your options and which fields might hold some opportunity for you, because as you're looking to find a flexible job, you don't necessarily need to stay in the same field that you've been in. I know Tiffany was talking about how companies are more willing to train on things now because the job market is so good for job seekers, and the competition to find applicants and fill jobs is harder for the employers now. That the training is there sometimes, but the soft skills, the ability to work flexibly, all of those sorts of things are what you really need to showcase. So just in case you wanted to get thinking about some other options that might be there for you, these are the top fields for flexible jobs. But like I said, it's out of over 55 career fields. So if you don't see what you're interested in on this list of 20, there are still plenty more career fields with flexible jobs. So nothing to panic about. I also wanted to spotlight some of the companies hiring for flexible jobs. So there's lots of large companies, small companies, all sorts of different kinds of companies offering flexible work options today. These are the top 20 that are for flexible jobs. And as you can see, they come from a variety of industries. So we see things like communications, travel, healthcare, technology, education, just to name a few that are up there. But you can find many other companies that support flexible work options by going to this jobs and companies section of the FlexJobs site, or the FlexJobs blog, or we have this guide to the best companies for flexible jobs on the site too. And it's a searchable database of over about 50,000 companies that we've researched and vetted that have offered flexible job opportunities. So if you are wondering if a company you want to work for has flexible work opportunities, that guide is a really great place to go. You can search for the company by name and see their history of flexible jobs if they have one. You can see the type of flexibility they've offered, the types of jobs that they've posted. So it's really helpful from a job seeker's perspective. It gives you a lot of good background information. And then I also wanted to touch on the most common remote jobs, because if I asked the audience here to raise your hand for your preferred type of flexible work, it's probably a safe bet that most of your hands would shoot up for remote work, because about 80% of professionals say that remote work is their most desired type of flexible work. And so it's very popular. And because of that, I wanted to show you these most common remote job titles. And again, it's really just to get your mind thinking about the possibilities for you and what might be out there. And it could be that you see your career field up here and you go, aha, I definitely can find some remote work there. Or you might see a field here that you go, I might be able to switch into that field, and that's of interest to you. So just to get your mind wondering and start to think about the options that are available for you. Okay, so some tips for finding a flexible job. A lot of these have been touched on, so I'm going to go through them pretty quickly just to make sure we have plenty of time for questions. So the first is that we typically talk about keywords to avoid. So work from home and work at home, when you see them in job listings, when you're searching on job search websites or Google, and you use the phrase work from home, you're more likely to come up with a bunch of scams and have to sift through those scams to find legitimate opportunities. So we recommend avoiding those phrases. Now, this is not the same as, say, going to a site like the Penny Hoarder that has a work from home section where they will help you locate flexible work from home types of jobs. They will have guides on how to look for remote work. Using that phrase to describe it in that way on an informational site is very different. That's not necessarily a scam. But when it's a job posting that says you'll be able to work from home and earn hundreds of dollars in your pajamas, and there's sort of those red flags popping up, that's when we are talking about these phrases being ones that you would want to avoid. So try searching for phrases instead like remote, virtual, and telecommute. Those tend to be used much more often by legitimate employers posting real remote jobs. And then I've also listed here some of the keywords that you can use to discuss, to find different types of flexible jobs that aren't necessarily remote, because there are so many other types of flexibility out there as well. And we touched on these a little bit in my discussions with Tiffany and Mo and Jason. But when you're applying for flexible jobs, you definitely want to edit your resume and cover letter to include any previous flexible work experience that you have. So if you've ever worked remotely before or had a flexible schedule, note that on your resume, because employers often say that they want to see previous experience working that way. They want to know that you are trustworthy to work that way, that you understand what it takes to be productive and efficient in that type of environment. Also, some of the best skills for flexible jobs that you have should be on your resume. You can talk about those in your cover letter. And Tiffany mentioned a lot of those as well, soft skills, time and task management, the ability to focus, communication is a big one. So things like that can definitely be helpful. And then try to make small changes for each job that you're applying for. So you don't have to rewrite your whole resume, but you should update it to really match that job application's description, what they're talking about in that job description, and also some of the information that you find when you're researching the company, so that you can really show that you are a good fit for not just the job, but also the company. And then you also want to focus your search. So when you're networking with people, you can really focus it and drill down by asking not just what they do for a living, but how they work. You will find much more often that when you're talking about how people work, they'll start talking about that they get to work from home, or they have a flexible schedule, or they actually work part-time. And that will give you some insight into other employers that offer flexibility that you may not have known about. And also targeting flexible companies is a really big thing. So if you're using the FlexJobs site to look for different companies, or just online, targeting flexible companies that have a track record, much like Dell's, of work flexibility and supporting this in a very public way. If you really want to find a flexible job, that's a good way to find it, is finding those companies that very much openly support flexible work options. Okay, so that was my very quick spiel. Hopefully it wasn't too fast and you caught most of it, but I want to get to the question and answer session. We have a lot of questions coming in, so let's jump right in. As I mentioned, you can use the GoToWebinar control panel to ask questions if you want to. But so the first question that we had came in for Dell, and it's asking about your flexible work positions. When you're hiring for people in different types of positions that could be flexible, are they typically full-time jobs? Are they part-time jobs? Is it a mix? So Mo, if you could talk just a little bit about the types of jobs that Dell hires for that are flexible, that would be great.
Certainly. I'm assuming you can hear me?
Yes, hello.
Perfect. All right. Yes, they are. Actually, they are all of the above. So our flexible job, and I'll just call it that in the sense of fully remote or partially remote, or your typical regular job, for lack of a better word. So they are full-time we don't dedicate our remote job to a certain category, and actually, for that matter, to certain levels. So I can proudly say we have from entry career levels jobs to very senior jobs that are fully remote and leveraging some form of flexibility. And actually, the way to find those, just to be very practical as well, if you go into our career website, I'm sure we can share that at some point. If you can follow up on it, you'll find that our jobs will have an indication whether they have to be based on a certain location, or whether they are open for, let's say, across all the states, or North America for some of them, etc. So very easy to find. It's mostly skill-based, not location-based, and I highly recommend you check that out and give us a consideration.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that's probably good news for a lot of people on the call today who were wondering about that it really does kind of come in all shapes and sizes. And so another question that came in, this one probably be good for Jason, and of course, anyone on the panel, feel free to weigh in if you have some extra information to add. A couple different people have talked about struggling to land their first remote job or sort of an entry-level type of remote job, and what you might have as far as tips for applying for entry-level remote jobs and landing that first remote job. What are some of the big things you could do to push yourself in that direction? So Jason, if you want to jump in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think as we've all touched on, trust plays a key role as well as soft skills. So however you can convey that in that either a resume or the initial interview, how you can show that. I think it also comes down to, it was mentioned earlier, this idea of tailoring the resume or really tailoring your pitch because you're pitching yourself for this position. I would follow a less but better approach, right? So spend more time on fewer applications. Find the ones that resonate the most with you. I'm legitimately serious when I say I looked at two jobs, one of them being CrowdSpring. I didn't even apply to the first one that I found. I applied to CrowdSpring and I got that one. I don't have a huge background. I don't have a lot of fabulous experience where they were just fawning over me. It's more of just like what these questions are, more entry level. How do we get this? I think my approach was much different in that I spent hours for this one job, and I did a lot of things to I created a separate landing page with a video explaining why I specifically wanted this position and why I thought I would be good for it. And that kind of endeared me a little bit more. They were able to see, my face and hear exactly what some of my plans were. So spend more time with fewer jobs, and I think you'll have a better approach. But really only apply for those that you really want. Figure out why you want those, why you would be good for those, and then sell that to the employer.
Oh, Jason, I'm clapping over here virtually, because that's exactly what we try to tell everyone, is that it's not the number of jobs you apply for, it's how much time you spend on jobs that you really want and crafting great applications and going above and beyond. Like you said, you created a video for that one.
So let me spend one more minute. It does get even crazier because you'll just have fun like hearing this. So when I created this landing page, I also have a little experience with marketing, and I wanted to show that I knew what I was doing with marketing. So there's this concept of remarketing or retargeting. And this is what happens when you go to a website and then for weeks afterwards, you're seeing ads for those products. So we all know what that looks like. I wanted to do something for me at the company. And so what I did was I created this retargeting platform on my webpage. So all the people I cared about seeing it was the CEO and the employees at that company. And so when they came to that site, their computers were tagged, and then I served up ads of myself. And there's this limit Facebook and Google have to prevent you from targeting specific people, where you have to have, I think it's 500 people in your remarketing audience before your ads start showing. So what I did was I got on Amazon Mechanical Turk and set up a fake account that said, hey, I want people to review my webpage for errors. I instantly got 500 people that clicked on it, and so their computers were tagged. The only people I cared about were like 4 people at the company. And it was jokingly thought that I got the job because they just wanted me to stop spamming.
I was going to say, in the best
but
possible way.
But that's what it takes, right? Like literally that over the top. And it doesn't work for every job. Please don't start spamming Mo at Dell. but it shows that initiative. It shows that soft skill. It shows you're creative. And as you can imagine, that took hours worth of work that some people would say, yeah, but I could spread that over multiple job searches. It's a little bit of a gamble, but I think it pays off.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think you went above and beyond in the most extreme sense, but it paid off for you. But yeah, that's like, you can get creative. I mean, I don't know if everyone would necessarily do exactly that, but like, you really can get creative when you are applying for jobs and make yourself stand out. I mean, some of the people that in my time I've been involved in hiring that have gotten the jobs are not necessarily the people that on paper looked perfect. It was the people that really made themselves stand out. And especially in cover letters, I find, even if you're not going to make a video and direct people to your site and all of that, but even in a cover letter, which somebody had asked, are cover letters necessary? I always say yes, because you will still find hiring managers and recruiters who read those cover letters and they make a difference. If you can show your passion and your interest in this company, in this position, in the cover letter, that's a huge step forward. And I've been involved in situations where the cover letter is what got someone the interview. So yes, I would say it's always good to write a cover letter at the very least and get a little creative and show your passion there.
I would actually agree with you on that, especially with the work from home jobs. That it's a remote thing, so that, besides getting your resume, what do they have to go on? And I think showing your personality in your cover letter is a big part of it, and showing why it is that you have a passion for working for their company. I think that sometimes it's kind of easy for people to get, into the idea that, I'm going to be working from home, I'll be in my pajamas, but you still have to take it just as seriously as if you're looking for, the job that's, inside the office. So putting your passion into that cover letter is a big part of it.
So true. And actually, Tiffany, I have a question for you also. This came from, let's see, now I've just lost it. So this is ideas for balancing working from home and working flexibly and also having a family. So you mentioned that you're a mom and you also have this job where people are not, sources are not always available. So you're kind of working odd hours. What are some of your best tips or tricks for balancing all of that sort of stuff going on in your life and still feeling that you're balanced?
Yeah, you know what that is? I think that's a struggle with a lot of our work from home readers. And one of the things that I do personally is, setting up the time where you are online and setting up the time when you are offline. Set work hours within your own house. I mean, even when I'm working from home, that doesn't mean that I open the computer and I work until, I forgot that the kids are coming home. No, part of it is that setting up the boundaries early on, but making sure that they're, knowing that, that you have the flexibility to work different hours doesn't mean that you log on at 9 and you log off at 5. I will often get on at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning and work a couple hours because I know that I'm going to go pick up my daughter from school, but that's okay. And I think that part of that, a big part of setting the boundaries is knowing, your space. So when I am sitting on, at my desk, in my house, I know that I am at work, and being able to turn that off and saying, okay, we close it. I have like a fold down desk. So it's a small space. It's not a big space. We don't have a big house. I don't have my own office to close the door, unfortunately, but I know when I close that desk, day's done. And that helps. I think that helps create, both the boundaries, and it also helps you get in the mindset when you are at work, because when that desktop folds down, I'm not watching Netflix. I'm not getting on and, I should probably check my email from home, or, maybe I'll do some laundry. No, when I have that desktop down, I'm working. And if that's at 6 o'clock in the morning, then that's when everybody knows I'm working.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that tip. Yeah. And I think it's also one of the things I found that is really helpful is if you have your work mail, your email on your phone, when you are off the clock, turn it off, turn the notifications for that off so that you're not, unless it's some sort of a requirement that you're on call or something like that, of course. But if you can turn it off, because just, that back of your mind feeling that there's that little red notification of there's work emails to be checked can really disrupt the balance that you're trying to maintain. So just something as little as that can also help too. Thank you, Tiffany.
And I can't help but jump in for 1 minute here since I'm doing this. It's not working from home; it's just working all over the place, which is crazy with two little girls. I just want to real quickly add, and that was a great thought about knowing kind of yourself and setting up the boundaries. But what I found especially helpful as well, in addition to that, would be letting everybody else know your sacred time for work and why you have that, right? So it starts with the kids and with your spouse, why you're doing this, and that just because your computer is open doesn't mean, you're open for a conversation. And then respect that trust, right? Because if you're on Amazon or you're on Netflix when you're supposed to be working, you're not going to be viewed as having that sacred time to get your work done. I find it very difficult to talk to family about this because I think just because I'm working from home that they can just interrupt me. Extended family, they can just interrupt. But no, it's a real job. I'm just working it from my computer. So absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I regret to say that we've hit the top of the hour. So I know there are so many other questions that we haven't gotten to. But I really appreciate the audience asking such great questions, and our panelists today. We can give a virtual round of applause to Mo at Dell. Thank you, Mo, so much for being here. And also Jason Byer. Thank you, Jason, very much.
Thanks, absolutely.
And Tiffany Connors from the Penny Hoarder. Thank you so much for being here also.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I just wanted to go over a couple next steps. I know we're just a little bit over, but this won't take too long. First of all, I wanted to give a huge shout out to all of the people who've been supporting National Flex Day today. It's great to see so many different companies, career coaches, organizations, nonprofits, all sorts of different places, being public and loud about this on social media. It's great to see National Flex Day being supported and celebrated today by so many different folks. So this is just a big long list of people who've been supporting it that we wanted to say thank you very much to. And also some next steps to go over. So as I mentioned, FlexJobs memberships are up to 50% off through October 18th. So you've got all the information right there. Right now, after this, we'll have a very quick survey that will pop up when we're done with the webinar. If you can hang on for another 30 seconds and take that survey, that would be very helpful for us, and we really appreciate that. Tomorrow, you'll also receive an email follow-up. So that'll have the survey in it in case you can't take it right now. That'll also have the, there isn't a handout, that's a typo, but there will be a link to the recording and some information on the Flex Day promotion for FlexJobs. And also, I wanted to mention that we do have some upcoming webinars. One in particular that I wanted to point out is happening Tuesday, October 30th. It's resumes for remote jobs. So if you were on this call and you are interested in getting a remote job, but you're not sure how to update your resume accordingly, that's a great webinar for you to check out. We will have information on our blog about that in the coming days. So be sure to check out flexjobs.com/blog. And then you can go to the job search and webinars and videos section. That's where this webinar will be housed. And also our information for this upcoming webinar that we're going to do will be there as well. But thank you all very much for being here today. Thanks for hanging in a couple minutes late. We really appreciate it. And happy National Flex Day to everyone. Thanks all.